My daughter thought I didn't notice when she slipped something unusual into my soup. But I saw every small movement. When she walked away, I swapped our plates, turning her own treachery into her trap. What happened next left me stunned. Before we continue, make sure to subscribe to the channel and tell us in the comments what time it is where you are. The pain struck like a hammer to my gut, forcing me to my knees on the cold kitchen tiles. My hands clawed at my stomach, fingers digging in as if I could squeeze out the agony. Sweat beaded across my forehead despite the evening chill creeping through the windows. "Dad!" Teresa's voice cut through my gasps. "What's happening?" I tried to answer but only managed a strangled groan. The pain twisted deeper, alive somehow, clawing its way through my insides. My vision blurred as I struggled to focus on my daughter's face hovering above me. "Something's wrong," I rasped. "Feels like my stomach's being torn apart." Teresa dropped to her knees beside me, her hands fluttering over my shoulders. "You look awful, Dad. Your face is gray." Her voice held the familiar warmth of concern, but beneath it, a sharp eagerness that made my skin crawl. She pressed her palm against my forehead, her touch deceptively efficient. "You're burning up. When did this start?" "About an hour ago," I whispered, leaning against the counter for support. "Right after lunch, the sandwich I made you." Her eyes widened, a flicker of genuine worry crossing her face. "Maybe the turkey was bad. I should have checked the expiration date." The refrigerator hummed steadily, the grandfather clock in the hallway marking time with mechanical precision. Every sound felt unbearably loud against the backdrop of my pain. I studied Teresa's face as she helped me to my feet, searching for something I couldn't name. "Let me make you some light soup tonight," she said, her smile stretched too wide. "Something gentle for your stomach." "Thank you, sweetheart," I murmured automatically, the reflex of decades of fatherhood. "You always take care of me." "Of course, Dad. It's the least I can do." But her eyes didn't match her smile, too sharp, too calculating, the same look she wore as a teenager when she'd broken curfew and insisted she'd been at the library. I was too weak, too grateful for her help to fully analyze it. Evening light spilled through the window, casting long shadows across the linoleum. Family photos lined the walls: Teresa's graduation, my wedding, Christmas mornings from years past. Those memories felt distant now, separated from this moment by an invisible barrier I couldn't understand. "I think I need to lie down," I said, one hand pressed to my abdomen. "Good idea," Teresa said, her voice pitched unnaturally high. "Rest while I prepare something special for dinner. You'll feel better after you eat." I nodded, too drained to speak. Each breath demanded conscious effort. Standing upright required every ounce of focus. But as I turned toward the stairs, I caught her reflection in the window glass. Her smile had vanished the moment she thought I wasn't watching, replaced by something cold and resolute. My years in the military whispered warnings I couldn't yet decipher. 30 years of training had taught me to trust my instincts. And right now, every instinct screamed danger. But this was my daughter, the little girl who used to curl into my lap during thunderstorms. I gripped the banister, each step up the stairs feeling like climbing a mountain, while her voice echoed behind me with soothing promises. I collapsed onto the edge of the bed, the mattress groaning under my weight. 13 steps had drained every ounce of energy from my aching body. Outside the window, dusk painted the suburban street in shades of amber and gray. My gaze fell on Margaret's photograph on the nightstand. 10 years since cancer took her, and I still reached for her perfume bottle in moments like this. The glass felt cold and smooth against my fingertips, a tangible link to better times. The stomach pain was subsiding, replaced by a gnawing unease. Something about Teresa's behavior downstairs set off alarms I had buried long ago. She had been 16 when everything began unraveling. I could still see her in this room, tears streaming down her face, fists clenched at her sides. "You hate me!" she had screamed, her voice raw with grief. "I'm protecting you," I had replied, my words stumbling in the wrong way. "You don't understand how dangerous the world can be." Margaret would have known what to say. She had always been the bridge between Teresa's wild spirit and my rigid discipline. Without her, we were two broken people speaking different languages. The memory shifted a year later. Teresa, 17 now, dressed in clothes that revealed too much, her makeup applied with teenage defiance. "Everyone else is going," she argued, gripping the car keys I'd forbidden her to touch. "You can't keep me locked up forever. As long as you live under my roof." I started. "Then maybe I won't live here much longer." Her threat hung in the air like a sharpened blade. True to her word, she left the day after her 18th birthday. I watched from this same window as she loaded her car with everything that mattered to her. No hugs, no backward glance, just the slam of a door and the crunch of gravel under tires. For 10 years, our contact had been minimal. Birthday cards without return addresses. Brief phone calls, lasting barely 3 minutes. I told myself it was for the best, that she needed space to grow. Then, last month, she appeared on my doorstep with 2 suitcases and hollow eyes. "I need somewhere to stay," she said, avoiding my gaze. "Just temporarily." I welcomed her back without question, desperate to reclaim what we'd lost. Maybe it was guilt, maybe loneliness. Either way, I was overcompensating for lost time. The house settled around me with familiar groans. Downstairs, Teresa moved through the kitchen, opening cabinets, running water. The sounds should have been comforting, proof of life in a home long too quiet. Instead, they set my nerves on edge. I rubbed my temples, trying to shake the growing certainty that something was wrong. The stomach pain had hit suddenly, like nothing I'd experienced before. And Teresa's reaction, it lingered in my mind. My phone buzzed on the nightstand. A text from an unknown number. "Checking on you. Hope you're feeling better. T." Teresa was downstairs. Why text instead of calling? I stared at the message, confused, still recovering from the ache in my gut. Another noise from the kitchen, glass hitting the floor, then silence. "Everything okay down there?" I called. "Fine, Dad," she replied, her cheerfulness forced. "Just dropped a spoon." But it had sounded like glass, not metal. I touched my wedding ring for reassurance. Margaret used to say I worried too much. That suspicion came from years in military intelligence. Maybe she was right. Maybe I was seeing threats where none existed. Yet as I listened to my daughter moving below, I couldn't shake the feeling that the real Teresa had never truly returned. Her voice pulled me from memory to the uncertain present. I pushed myself off the bed and moved toward the stairs, her voice growing clearer with every step. The banister felt solid under my hand, grounding me as I descended. "Dad, soup's ready. Come down." "I'm coming, sweetheart." The kitchen glowed with warm overhead light, the scent of chicken broth thick in the air. I paused at the doorway, taking in the scene. Teresa stood hunched over the counter near the stove, shoulders moving with precise, deliberate motions. 2 white bowls sat on the granite, steam curling from both. Something about her posture triggered my instincts. She stirred one bowl with sharp, urgent movements. Then she reached for a small glass vial, barely larger than my thumb. With practiced efficiency, she poured white powder into the left bowl, stirring rapidly. Every motion was rehearsed, professional. My breath caught. Time slowed as understanding hit like ice water. My own daughter was poisoning my food. Every instinct screamed at me to confront her, but 30 years of tactical training held me in place. I remained frozen, watching my child turn into a stranger. Teresa straightened, wiped her hands on a dish towel, and tucked the vial into her jeans. Half turned toward me, she said, "Almost ready. Just letting it cool a bit." Her voice artificially bright. I forced my feet to move, stepping into the kitchen as if unaware. "Smells wonderful. You really took care of me," I said. "I made this especially for you," she replied, gesturing toward the bowls with a smile that didn't reach her eyes. "Should help with your stomach." The poison bowl sat closest to my usual seat. She knew my habits. She had planned this meticulously. I'll just grab some bread from the pantry, she said, turning away. This was my chance. Silent, precise, I moved 3 quick steps, swapped the bowls, and returned. Less than 10 seconds had passed. Teresa reappeared with a loaf of bread, still wearing that forced smile. Perfect timing. Everything's ready, she said, placing the poisoned soup, now in her own spot, on the table. I watched as she settled across from me, oblivious that her plan had backfired. How's the taste? She asked as I lifted a spoon. Perfect. Just what I needed. The soup was good. She had always cooked well when she tried. Teresa took her first sip. I studied her face, looking for recognition. None. She continued, seemingly enjoying the meal, occasionally glancing at me with what looked like anticipation. Minutes passed in tense silence, broken only by the scrape of spoons against ceramic. Every movement she made I noted, waiting for the moment her realization would come. How long before the poison would take hold? What exactly had she used? You seem brighter already, she observed, dabbing at her lips with a napkin. Color's coming back to your cheeks. Yes, much better, I said, keeping my tone steady despite the storm inside me. Thank you for taking such good care of me. The irony of those words burned in my throat. My own daughter had just tried to kill me, yet she sat across the table, chatting casually while unknowingly eating her own deadly concoction. I should probably get some rest, I said, pushing back from the table. Let it settle. Of course. Teresa rose as well, starting to clear the dishes. I'll clean up down here. I noticed she avoided her own nearly empty bowl. Did she feel anything yet? Was there a delayed reaction? Good night, sweetheart. Good night, Dad. Sweet dreams. The casual affection hit me like a knife. My legs shook as I climbed the stairs, not from illness, but from the horrific realization of what she had attempted. Each wooden step groaned beneath my weight, heavier than the last, carrying the burden of that night's revelation. My hands trembled as I closed the bedroom door, the lock giving only minimal comfort. Sleep was impossible. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw her small hands sprinkling that white powder into my soup. My daughter, the girl I taught to ride a bike, helped with homework, walked down the aisle at graduation, had tried to kill me. I paced like a caged animal, moving from window to door and back again. The digital clock mocked me, each second crawling, 9:47, 9:48, 9:49. Questions swarmed my mind faster than I could process them. What had she put in the soup? Household poison? Prescription drugs? Where would a 28-year-old even get poison? How long had she been planning this? Around midnight, I checked every lock, every window, every possible entry point. Military habits die hard. And right now, the house felt like hostile territory. Photos on my dresser seemed to shift under new scrutiny. Teresa at 16, proudly holding her driver's license. Had she been plotting even then? When had my little girl decided her father had to die? I pulled my will from the filing cabinet, studying the beneficiary information by lamplight. Everything went to her: the house, my pension, life insurance worth $200,000. Enough motive, if desperation had driven her. But why desperate? What had changed since she returned last month? She had been secretive about her life, but I had chalked it up to embarrassment over past failures. Now I wondered if something darker had been at work. My phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. Hope you're feeling better tonight. T. She was texting from downstairs, or had she left the house? I moved to the window overlooking the driveway. Her car sat empty in the pale moonlight, but the kitchen lights still glowed below. A memory surfaced, her at 12, eager to make chicken noodle soup for Margaret while she was in the hospital. I guided her small hands in that same kitchen. The secret ingredient is love, Dad, she had said, her earnest childhood wisdom shining through. Tonight, the secret ingredient had been poison. By 2 a.m., my anger had crystallized into cold calculation. This wasn't just betrayal, it was attempted murder. My military training kicked in, the analytical mindset that had kept me alive in Afghanistan: assess the threat, gather intelligence, plan a response. Tomorrow, I would confront her. If she denied it, I had evidence. If she tried to flee, I would be ready. Silence had ruled downstairs for over an hour. Either she was asleep, or pretending. I strained to hear any movement: footsteps, a creak, a door opening. Nothing. Sleep would not come tonight, not while a would-be murderer lived under my roof. The first pale light of dawn crept through the curtains. Movement in the kitchen told me she was awake. Answers would come today. I dressed slowly, deliberately, every movement precise. Then I descended, grim purpose driving me forward. Morning light poured through the windows, harsh and unforgiving, perfect for what was to come. Teresa sat at the kitchen table, hunched and still in yesterday's clothes. Her face was pale, drawn, with dark circles beneath her eyes, and both hands clutched her stomach. When she lifted her gaze to me, I saw real anguish and bewilderment in her eyes. "Dad," she whispered, her voice barely audible. "I feel awful. My stomach, it's burning. I think I have food poisoning." I poured myself a cup of coffee with calm, deliberate hands, studying her over the rim of my mug. She looked genuinely sick, proof that the poison was working, just not on the intended target. "That's interesting," I said, sliding into the chair across from her. "Tell me, Teresa, what exactly did you put in my soup last night?" The color drained from her pale face. I don't know what you mean." "Don't you?" I leaned back, keeping my eyes locked on hers. "Think carefully. What did you add to my food?" "Dad, you're scaring me." She tried to rise, but immediately sank back into the chair, clutching her stomach. "I just made soup. Regular soup." I saw every motion, every gesture she'd made while lacing my meal. My voice carried the icy authority I had once used over soldiers under my command. "You're paranoid," she spat, sharp and desperate. "You're imagining things. I would never." "Then you won't mind that I switched our bowls while you were getting the bread." Her reaction was instant and visceral. Her mouth opened and closed without sound, her eyes wide with shock and dawning horror. You what?" she stammered. "That's impossible." I held my gaze steady. "I saw you sprinkle white powder into the left bowl. You served me the right one, thinking I'd eat the poison. But while you were in the pantry, I made a small adjustment." Teresa's hand shot to her throat, then back to her abdomen. No, this can't be happening. You tried to kill your own father." Each word struck like a hammer between us. "How does it feel? Taking your own medicine?" She lurched to her feet, swaying. "You don't understand. I wasn't trying to hurt you." "Then what was in that vial? Vitamins?" Tears streamed freely now. I needed the money, Dad. I'm in trouble. I thought maybe if you got sick enough to go to the hospital. You thought you could make me die faster?" Rage, long suppressed, finally erupted. "It wasn't meant to be fatal," she sobbed. "Just enough to weaken you. Maybe a heart attack. It would have looked natural." The cold, methodical way she spoke about planning my death chilled me far more than hatred ever could. This was no crime of passion. This was deliberate. Calculated. Practiced. "Get out." My voice dropped, quieter, lethal. "Get out of my house. Dad, please." I stood suddenly, my chair toppling backward. "You have 10 minutes to pack whatever you can carry, and then I never want to see you again." She staggered toward the door, eyes wide and wild. "You can't throw me out. I'm your daughter." The daughter I had known died the moment she poisoned my food. I checked my phone. 9 minutes remaining. "Unless you prefer I call the police instead." She bolted, her footsteps thundering up the stairs. Drawers slammed. Objects were thrown into bags. True to her word, she returned in 8 minutes, dragging 2 suitcases behind her. At the front door, she spun around one last time. "You'll pay for this," she hissed, all pretense of remorse gone. This isn't over. The door slammed behind her, leaving me in a silence so heavy it pressed against my chest, along with the grim realization that she had chosen her path. Now, it was my turn to decide mine. I went straight to my study, my sanctuary of order and focus, where I could think clearly. Normally, the familiar smell of leather and old paper calmed me, but today, it did nothing against the storm inside. Methodically, I pulled out a yellow legal pad and began recording everything I could remember: timestamps, exact phrases, physical evidence. 30 years of military service had taught me the importance of precise documentation, and if this went to court, every detail mattered. 9:47 p.m. Observed tea. White powder added to soup bowl. Dissolved quickly when stirred. Container, small glass vial, approximately 2 inches tall. My engineer's mind took over, structuring chaos into data. What had she used? Where did she get it? Most important, who else was involved? Teresa wasn't clever enough to plan this alone. I reached for my phone and dialed Emily Carter's number. Emily had served as our family attorney for 15 years, ever since Margaret's cancer diagnosis. If anyone could guide me through this nightmare, it was her. Emily, it's Simon Brown. I need your help, immediately. Simon, good morning. You sound upset. What's happened? My daughter attempted to poison me last night. The words felt surreal as I said them. I have evidence. We need to speak today. There was a long pause. Simon, that's an extremely serious allegation. Are you certain? I saw her do it. I switched our bowls, and she's been sick all morning from her own poison. Can you meet me this afternoon? Of course. My office, 2 p.m. Perfect. And Emily, we also need to discuss updating my will immediately. After ending the call, I gathered my financial records, bank statements, investment accounts, insurance policies, everything Teresa stood to inherit. The house alone was worth $500,000, not counting my retirement savings and life insurance. The bitter irony wasn't lost on me. I had spent my life building something for her, and she had tried to murder me for it. My next call was to the bank. This is Simon Brown, account number 4471. I need to review all account access and beneficiary designations. Certainly, Mr. Brown. Is there a particular concern? Yes. I need to remove someone immediately. As I worked through the paperwork, memories surfaced. Teresa's incessant questions about my finances over the past month, her sudden interest in my medication schedule, the insistence on cooking for me, something she had never done before. How long had she been planning this? And who had influenced her? I recalled her secretive phone calls, the hours she spent disappearing without explanation. There had to be someone else behind this. Teresa was manipulative and selfish, yes, but not a natural killer. Someone had convinced her that murdering her father was acceptable, even necessary. The grandfather clock struck noon. 2 hours until my meeting with Emily. 2 hours to reconstruct as much of the puzzle as possible. I opened my laptop and began researching poisons matching what I had observed: white powder, quickly dissolved, delayed effects. The likely culprits were limited, pointing more toward prescription medications than traditional toxins. My phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. You made a mistake. We know where you live. The threat was immediate and unmistakable. Whoever was orchestrating this wasn't finished. They knew the poisoning had failed, which meant Teresa had already contacted them. I screenshotted the message and added it to my growing evidence file. Time to call in reinforcements. I dialed the non-emergency police line. This is Simon Brown, Oak Street. I need to report a threat and a possible attempted poisoning. Can someone take a statement? We can have an officer there within the hour, sir. I spent the remaining time securing the house, new locks, alarm activated, curtains drawn. If they escalated, I would be ready. I closed the file drawer with a decisive click. Plans were now in motion. Outside, the crunch of tires on gravel announced her return. Teresa was back, and this time, she wouldn't be alone. The screech of brakes in my driveway yanked me from my papers. Through the window, I saw Teresa slam her car door with violent force. Her face flushed with anger, her body tense with restrained fury. I remained in my leather armchair, hands folded, watching her storm up the walkway. She didn't knock. The front door slammed open, rattling the wall. "You think you're so clever, don't you, old man?" she screamed, standing in the doorway like a storm unleashed. "I think I'm alive," I replied calmly. "Which apparently disappoints you." She stepped into the living room, movements sharp and aggressive. "The hospital said I had dioxin poisoning, heart medication. How did you know what I was taking?" "I didn't," I said, "but you were careless enough to poison yourself with your own weapon." I gestured to the chair across from me. "Sit, Teresa. Let's talk like adults." "Adults?" Her laugh was bitter and cutting. "You want to talk about adults? This house should be mine. You owe me after everything." "I owe you nothing." My voice stayed even despite the rage rising inside me. "You tried to kill me. You abandoned me after Mom died." She paced wildly, hands flailing. "You were cold, controlling, impossible to live with. I had to leave. You chose to leave. And now you've chosen to try killing me for money. You can't prove anything." She spat. Her voice trembled with desperation. "It's your word against mine. Who's going to believe a paranoid old veteran over his own daughter?" I pulled out my phone and showed her the screenshot of the threatening text. "Your friends aren't very clever when it comes to covering their tracks." Her face went pale. That wasn't from me." "No, but it was aimed at you. Someone else is involved, isn't there? Someone who convinced you that murder was the answer to your problems." Teresa's eyes flicked toward the window, then back to me. "I don't know what you're talking about. Get out of my house now, or I'll call the police." "This is my home too," she screamed. "I grew up here. I have rights. You forfeited any rights when you tried to poison me." I stood slowly, projecting the full presence of my military bearing. "You have 30 seconds to leave voluntarily, or I'm calling 911. She took a step back toward the door, but her eyes blazed with anger. "Fine. But next time I come back, I won't be alone. And you'll regret it. There won't be a next time. Stay away, or face the consequences." "What consequences? What can you do, old man? You're alone. No one's on your side. I have the law on my side, and proof of everything you've done." She froze at the threshold, her face twisting with a mixture of fury and fear. "You don't understand who you're dealing with. There are people who need this money. People who won't just let this slide. Then they can explain themselves to the police when I file my report tomorrow. You wouldn't dare. Try me." For a tense moment, we stared at each other across the remnants of a shattered relationship. Then Teresa spun on her heel and stalked to her car. "This isn't over," she yelled over her shoulder. "You'll pay for humiliating me like this." The engine roared, and she peeled out of the driveway, tires scorching the asphalt. I watched her taillights vanish into the dusk, but her words lingered in my mind. I grabbed my phone. It was time to uncover exactly who was manipulating my daughter and driving her to destroy our family. I dialed the number Emily had given me years ago for discreet investigations during divorce cases. Tonight, I needed answers about who was poisoning my daughter's mind against me. "Marcus Sullivan, Private Investigations." "Mr. Sullivan, this is Simon Brown. Emily Carter referred me. I need urgent help with a family situation. It involves attempted murder. I can be at your location within the hour, Mr. Brown." "This is about your daughter?" "Yes. And whoever's influencing her." Exactly 60 minutes later, Marcus arrived, a lean, sharp-eyed man in his 50s, carrying the quiet confidence of someone used to uncovering hidden truths. I laid out the evidence: photos of the poison vial, hospital records from Teresa's visit, threatening texts. "Your daughter has been seeing Hubert Klein for 3 months," he said after scanning my initial files. "I've never heard of him. Who is he?" Small-time con artist, fraud, identity theft, real estate scams. He targets people with assets. Marcus pulled out a tablet and showed me a mugshot. Does this look familiar? The face was thin, predatory, with cold eyes and a practiced smile. I've never seen him before. He's been careful to avoid your house, but he's been coaching your daughter extensively. Coaching her to do what? Kill you, inherit your assets, liquidate everything fast, and disappear with the money. Marcus swiped to another screen. I have recordings. My blood ran cold. Recordings of what? Conversations between them, discussing the poison, the specific medication, timing for maximum effect, and how to dispose of your body. The clinical precision in his delivery should have shocked me, but my military training kept me steady. How did you get recordings so quickly? Your daughter isn't careful. Neither is Klein. They've been meeting at the same coffee shop for weeks, near windows, speaking openly. He showed me photos of Teresa with a man I now recognized as Hubert. Most of their planning sessions were captured by basic surveillance equipment. My own daughter. I struggled to comprehend the betrayal. How could she fall for someone like him? Klein is skilled at what he does, Marcus explained. He identifies vulnerable people, recently divorced, estranged from family, financial troubles, and offers them everything they think they want. Your daughter was ideal prey. For the next hour, Marcus guided me through a complete dossier. Hubert Klein, 32, had been arrested 4 times for fraud. His pattern: seduce women with property or inheritance potential, manipulate them to steal from family, then vanish with the money. He'd done it 3 times before. 2 resulted in theft, 1 in assault. This was his first attempted murder. What happened to his previous victims? Financial ruin, criminal charges. 1 woman is still in prison for embezzling her elderly mother's trust. The evidence was damning: phone records documenting dozens of calls between Teresa and Hubert, financial records revealing his mounting debts, and property consultations planning the rapid sale of my house once it was inherited. There's more, Marcus said, pulling up another file. They've already lined up a buyer, cash deal, no inspections, fast closing. The whole scheme was planned down to disposing of your body. Cremation. They intended to tell people it was your request. No autopsy, no questions. I stared at the photos of my daughter and her accomplice, heads bent together over coffee, plotting my murder with the casual air of people arranging a weekend outing. The betrayal was meticulous and complete. And the poison? Where did they get it? Klein has contacts in the black market pharmaceutical trade. The dioxin was pure medical grade, expensive, and difficult to trace. But they slipped up, several times. Most importantly, they underestimated you. Marcus shut his tablet and looked me in the eye. Mr. Brown, these people are dangerous. The failed poisoning has made them desperate. They know you're aware of the plan, and they won't walk away from this kind of money. What do you suggest? Immediate police involvement. You've got enough evidence to support conspiracy to commit murder charges. And if they vanish before arrests are made, you remain at risk. Klein has a record of escalating when his schemes fail. I thought of Teresa's threats, her promise to come back with reinforcements. How soon could they strike again? Days, not weeks. Probably sooner. I closed the thick folder of evidence. My daughter's betrayal now lay in stark black and white. Tomorrow, I would make sure she could never harm anyone else the way she tried to harm me. The downtown traffic couldn't slow my determination as I carried the folder toward Emily's law office, each step heavy with the weight of proof against my own child. The folder felt like lead, filled with evidence of an attempt on my life for money. Emily's office was on the 15th floor of a glass tower overlooking Lake Michigan. I had been here before during Margaret's illness, managing medical directives and estate matters. Today, I was here to sever my daughter from my life forever. Simon, you look terrible, Emily said as her secretary led me into the conference room. How are you holding up? Better than yesterday, I said, placing the investigation folder on her mahogany desk. I have everything we need. Emily opened the folder, scanning the documents. Her expression darkened with every page. Simon, this evidence is damning. Are you sure you want to disinherit her completely? She made her choice when she tried to poison me. The courts will need clear evidence of intent to harm me personally, not just financial greed. I have recordings, photos, and witness statements from the private investigator, I said, pointing to the audio transcripts. Is that sufficient? Emily studied the files carefully. More than sufficient, but this is permanent. Once filed, it cannot be undone. Good. She wanted my money so badly she was willing to kill for it. Now she'll get nothing. What about charitable designations? You mentioned veterans organizations. Everything goes to them. The house, investments, life insurance, pension, every dollar I earned goes to those who served honorably, not to someone who tried to murder me. Emily pulled out legal forms and began drafting. This will take hours to do correctly. We need to anticipate and block any potential challenges. What about the house? Security measures? Change all the locks. Remove her access entirely. Install cameras. She's no longer my daughter. The legal language felt cold and final as Emily read each clause aloud. Complete revocation of the previous will, removal of Teresa Brown from all beneficiary lists, transfer of power of attorney to Emily Carter, and medical directives excluding Teresa from healthcare decisions. There's one more thing, Emily said, looking up from her papers. Given the criminal conspiracy, I strongly advise involving law enforcement immediately. The investigator recommended the same. These people tried to kill you. They won't simply accept being cut out of a $500,000 inheritance. They will escalate. I'm ready for that. Are you? Emily asked. Hubert Klein has a history of violence when his schemes fail. The recordings show contingency plans if the poisoning didn't work. I thought of the threatening text and Teresa's promise to return with help. What kind of contingency plans? Emily pressed. Break-ins, assaults, making my death look accidental. He's done this before. Then we make sure the police have everything they need to arrest them both. Emily picked up her phone. I'm calling Detective Reynolds. He handles financial crimes and family fraud. Do it. While Emily arranged the police meeting, I signed document after document. Each signature felt like cutting another tie to my daughter. Ironically, I was using my will to declare her legally dead to me. The detective can meet us here at 3, Emily said. That gives us time to finish the estate changes and prepare a complete evidence package. How soon does the new will take effect? Immediately upon filing, which we'll do today. 2 hours later, the legal transformation was complete. Teresa Brown no longer existed in my legal universe. Every asset, every decision, every future consideration had been removed from her control. Detective Reynolds arrived promptly at 3, a stocky man with sharp, intelligent eyes. He listened to our presentation of evidence without interruption. When we finished, he snapped his notebook closed. Mr. Brown, this is enough for multiple felony charges. Conspiracy to commit murder, attempted poisoning, terrorist threats. I'll have the arrest warrants issued today, Detective Reynolds said. How fast can you locate them? We'll start with known addresses and contacts. With the evidence we have, I expect arrests within 48 hours. I left Emily's office, legally shielded but emotionally hollow, knowing my preparations would soon be tested once Teresa discovered what I had done. 3 days earlier, I had installed motion sensors, and now they chimed softly as 2 figures approached my front door. Teresa had kept her promise, she wasn't alone this time. Through the security monitor near my chair, I watched them pause at the entrance, clearly planning their next move. Hubert Klein looked exactly as in his mugshot, lean, predatory, eyes cold as ice, sweeping over my property like a burglar gauging defenses. His designer clothes did little to mask the tension in his shoulders. Beside him, Teresa's face was hard, her eyes burning with controlled rage. I remained seated in my leather armchair, hands folded calmly in my lap. The hidden cameras were recording. The emergency button was within reach. 5 days of preparation had led to this moment. They didn't knock. Hubert tested the handle, then kicked the door with a force that made the new deadbolt groan, the door frame splintering with a sharp crack that echoed through the house. "Mr. Brown," Hubert called as they stepped inside uninvited. "We need to have a conversation." "You should have made an appointment," I replied, still seated. Teresa appeared first in the living room doorway, her eyes blazing with desperation. "Dad, this is Hubert. We're just trying to make this easy." Hubert followed, filling the doorway with threatening confidence. A leather briefcase hung in one hand, and he exuded the casual dominance of someone used to intimidating weaker targets. "Sign these papers," he said, placing the briefcase forcefully on the coffee table. "Transfer the house and no one gets hurt." "And if I refuse?" Teresa's laugh was bitter. "Then we'll find another way to get what's ours, just like last time." I studied Hubert as he opened the briefcase, withdrawing official-looking documents. "Your daughter deserves this inheritance. Don't make it harder than it needs to be." "Inheritance?" I asked evenly. "You mean the money you planned to steal after trying to kill me?" "That was a misunderstanding," Hubert replied smoothly. "Just some medication to help you cooperate." Teresa miscalculated the dosage. "You can't prove anything," Teresa snapped, pacing behind him like a caged animal. "Actually, I can prove everything," I said, gesturing toward the corners of the ceiling, where tiny cameras recorded every word. "This entire conversation is being documented." Hubert's confident smile faltered as he spotted the nearly invisible lenses. "Those won't be admissible in court without consent. I live in Illinois. It's a one-party consent state for recordings in private homes," I said calmly. "I've already given mine," Hubert snarled, his polished mask cracking. He moved closer, looming over my chair. "You're going to sign these papers, transfer the house to your daughter, and forget this ever happened." "Or what?" I asked. "Or accidents happen to stubborn old veterans living alone." Teresa stepped forward, both of them now within arm's reach. "Dad, just sign the papers. We'll leave you alone after that." "The way you left me alone after poisoning my soup?" I said. "That wasn't poison," she protested. "It was supposed to make you sick enough to need my help. Help from a daughter who wanted her inheritance faster." Hubert pulled a pen from his jacket and tossed it onto the documents. "Enough talk. Sign now or we'll get more creative." I looked at the forged papers, then at my daughter's desperate face, then at the man who had corrupted her with promises of easy money. Every move, every threat, every statement was being recorded for prosecution. "I have a better idea," I said, reaching under my chair. As Hubert stepped closer, fist raised, I pressed the small hidden button. Help was already on the way. The wail of sirens sliced through Hubert's threats like a knife through still air. His smug grin faltered as red and blue lights danced across the living room walls through the curtained windows. Teresa's face strained of color as the sound registered. "You called the police," she whispered. 5 minutes ago," I said evenly. "Silent alarm. Very effective." Her earlier bravado evaporated as she stumbled backward into the hallway. "Dad, how could you call the cops on your own daughter? You stopped being my daughter the moment you tried to poison me," I replied. Outside, car doors slammed and heavy footsteps approached the shattered front entrance. Hubert's eyes darted around, searching for an escape, but I had planned my seating carefully. The only exit led through the front door, now surrounded by Chicago police. "Mr. Brown, are you all right?" a uniformed officer called. "I'm fine. The intruders are still in the living room." Detective Reynolds arrived first, weapon drawn but lowered, flanked by 2 officers. His gaze swept the broken door, the strewn papers, and the 2 criminals caught in flagranti. "Mr. Brown, you reported threats and attempted extortion?" "Yes," I said, nodding toward the hidden cameras. "I have video and audio of everything, including the previous murder attempt." "This is harassment," Hubert protested, stepping forward, then froze as all three officers turned their attention to him. "We haven't done anything wrong," he stammered. "Sir, we have recordings of you threatening this man in his own home," Reynolds said firmly. "Hands behind your back." "Dad, please," Teresa begged as the second officer approached her. "Family doesn't behave this way. Family doesn't try to kill each other for money," I said. "Detective, I also have proof of attempted murder and fraud conspiracy." Reynolds nodded as his partner cuffed Hubert. "We've been looking for both of you since yesterday. Outstanding warrants for conspiracy to commit murder." Teresa's legs gave way, and she clutched the doorframe as reality hit. "Warrants? But we—" "Attempted murder is still a felony, even if it fails," the third officer said, reading them their Miranda rights. Reynolds examined the briefcase Hubert had brought. Inside were not only property transfer documents but detailed financial records and evidence of meticulous planning. "These recordings are crucial," Reynolds said, bagging the papers carefully. "How long have you been documenting them?" "Since the first poisoning attempt 6 days ago," I said. "I have video of tonight's break-in, audio of confessions, and written threats sent previously." "Dad, you recorded us?" Teresa's voice broke as her hands were cuffed. "Your own daughter?" "I recorded criminals admitting to attempted murder and plotting future violence," I said calmly. Hubert tried one last ploy. "Officer, this old man is clearly delusional. He's inventing stories about his own family." "Sir, we have independent verification from a private investigation," Reynolds replied coldly. "Your criminal history speaks for itself." As they were led toward the squad cars, Teresa glared back one last time. "I'll never forgive you for this," she spat. "I've already forgiven myself for protecting others from you," I replied. The officers loaded them into separate vehicles, standard procedure to prevent collusion. Through my window, I watched Hubert argue angrily with his arresting officer while Teresa sat in stunned silence. Detective Reynolds stayed behind to secure the scene and take my formal statement. "Mr. Brown, your preparation is impressive," he said. "Military background? 30 years in the Army. I know how to prepare for hostile situations. Well, your planning just ended 2 criminal careers. They'll be facing serious prison time." As the squad cars disappeared into the night, their flashing lights fading, I felt a strange emptiness settle over the house. The threat was gone, but so was the last tie to the family I had once known. I stood in my doorway, finally free to close this chapter. 3 weeks later, I sat in the witness chair at Cook County Courthouse, my testimony delivering the final blow to my daughter's criminal conspiracy. The courtroom felt cold and impersonal, the perfect backdrop to close a chapter that had become little more than legal battles. Judge Martinez reviewed the evidence one last time before delivering her judgment. The recordings, the detective's investigation, the toxicology reports, and the private investigator's files, all painted an unmistakable picture of premeditated attempted murder and extortion. "The defendants are found guilty on all counts: conspiracy to commit murder, attempted poisoning, breaking and entering, and extortion," she declared. Teresa sat at the defense table, her gaze fixed on her hands, looking years older than she had 3 weeks ago. Hubert maintained his haughty posture, but no tailored suit could conceal the weight of defeat on his shoulders. "Mr. Brown," the prosecutor asked during sentencing, "how do you feel about your daughter's conviction?" I looked straight at Teresa. "Sometimes justice demands difficult decisions. I chose to protect future victims over someone who tried to take my life." The judge sentenced Teresa to 6 years in state prison, with the possibility of parole after 4. Hubert received 10 years, reflecting both his criminal history and his role as the architect of the scheme. Both would carry permanent criminal records. As court officers escorted them away, Teresa glared back one final time. "I'll never forgive you for this," she said. "I've already forgiven myself for protecting others from you," I replied. The gavel fell, and 20 years of fatherhood officially ended. Emily walked with me to the courthouse steps, where Marcus Sullivan awaited with his final report. The private investigator had uncovered 2 more elderly victims of Hubert's prior schemes, giving long-suffering families the answers they'd been seeking. "Your testimony helped convict a serial predator," Marcus said, shaking my hand. "Those families finally have closure." "What happens now?" Emily asked. "Now I start over," I said. Within 2 weeks, the house sold to a young family with children who would fill it with laughter instead of lies. I kept only personal items, like Margaret's photographs, and donated the rest to veterans organizations. My new home was in a retirement community outside Tampa, surrounded by other military retirees who understood the importance of honor and loyalty. The weather was warm, the neighbors genuine, and nobody tried to poison my food. I volunteered at the local VA hospital, helping other veterans navigate family conflicts and elder abuse situations. My experience with Teresa, painful as it had been, became a guide for counseling others facing betrayal. Mrs. Patterson from next door brought homemade cookies every Tuesday. Bill Martinez across the street and I played chess every Thursday evening. These were friendships chosen freely, more valuable than blood ties formed out of obligation. 6 months later, I received a letter from Teresa. She claimed she had found religion in prison and wanted to apologize, hoping for a second chance. I read it once, then filed it with the other legal documents from her case. Some bridges, once burned, are best left in ashes. Emily called occasionally to check on my adjustment to retirement. The veterans of foreign wars used my estate donation to fund a new elder abuse prevention program, helping seniors recognize and resist family financial manipulation. "You've saved more lives than just your own," Emily said during our last call. "That was the goal," I replied. As I watched the Florida sunset from my porch, surrounded by friends who valued honesty over blood ties, I knew I had made the right choice. Sometimes the family you choose is stronger than the family you're born into. My phone rang. Bill Martinez, calling about tomorrow's chess game. I answered with a smile, ready for an evening with people who would never try to poison my dinner. The nightmare was over. Real life had finally begun. If you like this story, please like this video. Subscribe to the channel and share your impressions of this story in the comments. To listen to the next story, click on the box on the left.